What is up, fam? Agent O here, and it has been a while since I've been on the YouTubes. I was on hiatus for quite a bit. I had some computer problems. I had ended up getting a new camera to shoot, action figure reviews, and I'm not gonna lie, I did a lot of procrastination. The procrastination is real. But I saw this article the other day, close to the end of the week, I think, and I was like, yo, I got to do a video about this. This is just too crazy. It's pulled me out of hiatus just to do this and try to get back into the swing of making videos again. And the article I'm talking about is, I'm sure you've seen it on the national news or at least read it online. It's about a lady named Rachel Dolezal. She, I guess, has been living for the past few years as a black woman, even though she's white. Like she's completely blonde haired white woman living her life as a black woman. Got outed by her family, by her parents. Uh, because this had been going on for, like I said, years. And it turns out she lives in, I think, Spokane, Washington, and she's the president of the NAACP chapter in that state, or in that area, that city of Washington. So it's kind of crazy, like, that she had all these people fooled for like so many years, but like that's not the issue to me. Like the fact that she was the president of the NAACP isn't an issue, and it shouldn't be, because they're all like, the NAACP is supposed to be about equal rights for everyone, not just for black people. So it shouldn't be a problem that a white person couldn't be the president in a chapter, or the president overall of the as a whole. It's they've had white presidents before of the NAACP. So that's not the issue. I think the issue is, nobody can really, like, out of all the articles I've read, nobody can really wrap their heads around like how or why she like chose this route. Like, I was watching Huffington Post live interview, and some of the commentary, one of the one male interviewer, I forgot his name, but he was saying it almost seems like you would take a step back trying to masquerade yourself as a white person, given that society kind of looks down on blacks. And and it's just, nobody could really like understand. Of course there are some people that are upset about it, obviously, because you shouldn't be pretending to be something you're not. Especially, you're pretending to be black, and with all the things going on in the media and in the news and with the police and everything, you know black people don't need any more shit to get shoveled onto them. Like, we don't need that shit now, right now. So there's enough stuff going on that that is holding us back. Like, we don't need this either. And I think that's, to some extent, that's what how a lot of people feel. Or people weren't happy with that. It's basically, it's blackface, even though her intentions, I think, were actually honorable, because she's she's an Africana studies professor at a college. She graduated from Howard University, which is a predominantly black, it's a well-known black institute of knowledge. And and uh and I mean, she was raised her in her home with, you know with four adopted, black brothers. She had four brothers. So she was exposed to, her family life was, she was exposed to, different culture. Her family was basically open to, different cultures, and that's always a good thing, I think. Because not a lot of families get that kind of exposure. Not a lot of white families get that kind of exposure to different cultures, and are, positive about it. So that was awesome. And I think something somewhere along those lines, something about, with her, I guess, growing up, I think may have been one of those things that led to her doing what she did. Um, I don't know, man. Every time I read an article about this, my mind just is just blown away because I'm trying to understand what her thought process is or what her ultimate goal was by completely changing her identity and is it was she like what is she trying to prove? It didn't seem like it was a social experiment at all. It seems like she identified herself as black, like almost to the point where like you have to ask yourself, like, is this some kind of like delusional mental something, like what is it? Was it one thing? Was it a factor of a bunch of things? you know how do you process this? And that's what's like blowing my mind about this is how can you process all of this? One of the other questions I have about this whole thing is how people were fooled for so long, like outsiders, like the people in the NAACP chapter she worked in. I mean, she does a good job of, like she did a good job with like making her hair look the part. Obviously she wore, darker makeup on her body to look like she was a light skinned black person. But it I'm looking at her, I'm just so surprised that other black people were fooled by this, because like I don't know how anybody who was standing face to face with her could not tell that she was not black. Like I could see if you were standing at a distance, because in some of these pictures, if you look at her from a distance, she does look like she could be mixed, and so she has distance distortion factor, or as I call DDF, going for her in that case. But I don't know how she was able to fool all these people for so long. Like, I mean, I know a lot of people, where I work. I see all kinds of people from all different walks of life, you see people walking on the street that are very, very light skinned. They're almost like they could almost pass for Caucasian, and their features too. But there's always something. There's always a little hint of something. Like since I'm an artist and I've had to draw people, all the time. Like you start to get hip to facial features and facial structure. So you can kind of pick out like, okay, this person might be, a little bit of Italian, or this person, oh, I can definitely tell they've got, some Native American in them because, the way their cheekbone structure is, that sort of thing. So, I've seen people who they could easily pass for white, but there's just that little bit of something that I can tell, like, okay, they're mixed, just the Caucasian, I guess, genotypes and phenotypes, the genetics are more prominent than the African American genetics, but they still mesh together in such a way that they don't they to me, I can tell that they don't look more than one or the other. They have they have like their own look, you know, uh, and I could see how in some pictures she could pass as a mixed woman, as a mixed race woman, but then there's other pictures where I'm like, no, man, she's like clearly white. Like, how did you not see this at all? How did people not see this? So I could see how sometimes you could be fooled, but then other times I'm like, nah, man, like, like I know a lady. Like the other day, I had a float come to my floor, and I could tell she was mixed, even though she's very, very light skinned. But she just had a few of the little features that you could tell that make her look, like mixed raced. So I can see how people are fooled, because she actually, like, she didn't intentionally fool someone. They just assumed she was white, and they actually said something racist about black people to her, and she actually came and told me about it, because she couldn't believe it at first when she heard what they said to her, and she was just like, yeah, I just had to share that with you because you work with this person. And I was surprised when I heard it too. Like, I wasn't as surprised. I always had a feeling in the back of my head that this individual had some like racial overtones to her, because I noticed when she would talk about certain people, If they were white and they were like being lazy or something, she'd talk down about them. But when they were black and they were being just as lazy, there was a tinge more of anger and like, I don't like this person. And I always, in the back of my head, I was like, I wonder if that's because they're black you're feeling this way more so than what they're actually doing. But you can't I can't just assume every person when they say something bad about black people is being racist, because that would be wrong. I gotta at least give people the benefit. I feel I have to give people the benefit of the doubt until they prove me otherwise to me. But anyway, aside from that, getting back to Rachel Dolezal, her brother had recently given an interview to BuzzFeed, and I think his interview kind of sheds a little bit of light on her situation, I'm more so her home situation, and maybe shedding light on why she chose to do what she did. He stated that when she was at Howard, she was the only she felt like she was being discriminated against by other black people, because she got into Howard through art. She was getting her art degree, and she thinks that maybe when her art was so good that when they wanted her to come to the college, and then they were surprised that this African art was done by a white person, and she felt like she was being treated differently by teachers and by students, and that like she felt like they didn't want her to be there. Because she ended up getting her master's degree from Howard, and she started to hate white people after that. So there's this, it could be possible that part of this stems from white guilt or white hate, or self-hating, self-hating and white guilt is what I meant to say, which is definitely possible, and that was one of the things that I thought of. But the whole transition from her being a Caucasian person to completely identifying as a black person, like almost through and through. It felt more delusional, and it didn't feel like it was more about self-hatred. I didn't get it. I didn't get that at first, but based on what her brother Ezra has said, I think that's one of the big factors. But she also distanced herself from her parents. She says that they were abused as kids, physically abused. Ezra says he doesn't feel they were abused. They got spanked as kids, but he said that he would know if he was being abused, seeing as he grew up in the same house that she did. She also made claims that she lived in Africa and she hunted animals with bows and arrows. And there was a time when her family was living in South Africa, but she was not with them. He said she had never been to Africa in her entire life. So it's starting to get hard to discern what she says is real and what is fake, and you have to wonder if she herself believes some of these like fabrications. And at the same time, I wonder, I have to call into question the brother too, because the parents, when they gave their live interview to the Huffington Post Live, they were very guarded about certain things that had to do, like certain family matters that had to do with all of this. They were guarded and they didn't want to speak too much on certain things, which is understandable. If it's family matters and they want to keep that stuff private, by all means, yeah, it's a family affair. It should stay. Family matters should stay within the family, and it doesn't need to be public, knowledge or whatever. It doesn't need to be aired out in the public eye. But I don't know. It's getting harder and harder to understand or to tell who's telling what and who's telling the truth. He also said that Rachel had gotten her other adopted African American brother to also hate white people, and she was actually masquerading as his mother, when she was, pretending that she was black. It's, she also, I guess he said that she also instructed Ezra not to blow her cover when she moved to Spokane and took on this new identity. Also, she had there were allegations of possible hate crimes to her and her family. Her and her brother, who she was pretending was her son, while they were living in Spokane. They were never actually proven as to whether they were, at hate crimes or not. You could take that for what it is. Some people allege that she did that herself, trying to drum up controversy or whatever. Who knows? Who knows? That thought definitely crossed my mind when I was watching the news interview with her, because the interviewer actually brought it up, and she denied it, and she almost broke down in tears. Now, if she was faking and she had crocodile tears, then somebody give this woman an Oscar. But to me, watching that video, it felt like she completely believed, her what she was feeling at that time, and what she was saying. It didn't feel like somebody who was acting. It felt like somebody this was actually happening to them, and they didn't know why. And, they're not, this obviously is something that's wrong. And which once again brings me back to this, this whole mind blowing situation, and how she got to this point. It's really I don't really have any words. Like, I don't even think a psychologist or a psychiatrist or anybody who works with this kind of situation, with this kind of mental issue, would be able to fully and completely understand it, because we, for all our knowledge on the human mind and the way the brain works and the way people think, I mean, this is some new shit. Like, this is some next level shit right here. It's you can't just chalk it up to, a wigger mentality or a white guilt thing, or somebody, being completely delusional. Like, it could be any number of those things, or it could be all of those things, and it could be different degrees of those things working in tandem to have her end up, identifying as a black person, even though she's completely white. I think she's like Swedish European, or she's European or of some sort. I can't really remember. And you could tell her family, her mother and father, are definitely, saddened by all this, and they feel, distressed, and they've been estranged for her for so long, and, this is taking a toll on all of them. So it's sad, and and it really makes me feel sorry for Rachel, but at the same time, there could be consequences like prosecutable consequences for her doing this. Some people brought up, now I don't think she was actually doing the black thing while she was in Howard, but somebody had brought up, like, if she was, could she technically be in trouble for masquerading as a black person in Howard University? Because there was that Indian guy a few months back who did the same thing in order to get, scholarships and federal aid for him to finish med school. So if she did the same thing, and from judging from the timeline of events and from what the brother said, he said she was white while she was at Howard University, so it's possible she wasn't doing that. So it could be a problem for her later on, once she committed, and and maybe, and I don't know. I think it could be problematic for her later on, essentially. Even though we may never fully know or understand her reasonings for becoming a black person, I think that her intentions were actually good. Like I said earlier, it wasn't a social experiment. It wasn't her, like, as some, right wing fundamentalist masquerading as a black person in order to prove some kind of twisted point that, oh, black people have the same opportunities white people have, and we have proof. If this wasn't that at all, this is, she actually was fighting for black people while masquerading as a black person. And it's sad, and that saddens me because she may have made some advances. She may have, helped get the word out. She may have been she was doing these positive things, but I think the fact that she was lying about who she really was, I think hurts, and it takes away from all the positive stuff she was doing. And that's sad. That's too bad. So I'm just gonna wrap it up at this point because I'm still just, mine just completely kaboom, just blown away at all of this, and I really don't have anything else really to add. So yeah, if you watch this, and just leave your comments about this whole situation and how you feel about it. Are you mad? Do you feel bad that this had to happen, or that she did this, or what do you guys think? Because this is something that I think could easily open a good dialogue on, and everybody can sit here and have a good conversation about this, because this does have to deal, like, race played a factor in this, obviously. So leave your comments in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys at the next Thrant. I'm Agent O, and I'm out. Peace.